In 2001, I bought a small ranch house in Tucson for $162,000. It was nothing fancy, just 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a backyard with a lemon tree that the previous owner had planted 20 years before. But it was mine. Every single brick, every creaky floorboard, every stubborn faucet that dripped at 3 in the morning, mine. I need you to understand what that meant to me, because everything that happened later only makes sense if you know where I started. I was 53 years old when I signed those papers, a widow. My first husband, Richard, had passed away 2 years earlier from a heart attack that came out of nowhere. One morning he was complaining about heartburn, and by that evening, I was planning a funeral. We had been married for 28 years, and suddenly I was alone in the world in a way I never expected to be. Richard was a good man, but he wasn't a careful man. When he died, I discovered we had almost nothing. The life insurance policy he swore he had? He'd let it lapse 3 years earlier without telling me. The retirement account? He'd borrowed against it to help his brother start a business that failed. The house we lived in? Still had 18 years left on the mortgage. I sold everything. The house, the furniture, Richard's truck, my jewelry, everything except my mother's wedding ring and the photo albums. When the dust settled, I had exactly $214,000 to my name. That was it. That was my entire life reduced to a number. My sister, Margaret, God rest her soul, told me I should move in with her in California, save money, be around family. But I knew myself well enough to know I needed my own space. I needed to rebuild my life on my own terms. So I took that money, I moved to Tucson where the cost of living was reasonable and the winters wouldn't kill me, and I bought that little ranch house. I paid $162,000 in cash. No mortgage, no bank, just me and the deed with my name on it. Eleanor Frances Mitchell. I had the deed framed and hung it in my closet, where only I could see it. Every morning when I got dressed, I looked at that frame and reminded myself that no matter what happened, I had a roof over my head that nobody could take from me. I got a job as an administrative assistant at a medical supply company. The pay wasn't great, but it covered my utilities, my groceries, and let me put a little away each month. I learned to live simply. I learned to be content with what I had. And slowly, year by year, I started to feel like myself again. Then I met Victor. It was 2006. I was 58, and I had been alone for 7 years. I wasn't looking for anything. I had made peace with the idea that Richard would be my only husband, that I would spend my remaining years tending my lemon tree and reading mystery novels on my patio. Victor came into the medical supply office to order equipment for his mother. She had COPD and needed oxygen tanks delivered regularly. He was polite, well-dressed, and had this way of looking at you like you were the only person in the room. He was 61, recently retired from a career in pharmaceutical sales, and had moved to Tucson to help care for his mother Dolores after his father passed. What a devoted son, I thought. What a good man. He asked for my recommendation on which oxygen concentrator was best. I told him. He asked if I had time for coffee to discuss his mother's other medical needs. I said yes. That coffee turned into dinner the following week. Dinner turned into weekend drives through the desert. Weekend drives turned into him showing up at my door with flowers for no reason at all. He told me I was beautiful. He told me I was intelligent. He told me I had the kind of warmth that made a house feel like a home. I was charmed. After 7 years of loneliness, I was absolutely charmed. 6 months into our relationship, Victor asked if he could see my house. We had always spent time at his mother's place, where he lived in the guest house out back. He said he wanted to cook me dinner in my own kitchen, wanted to see where I spent my evenings, wanted to be part of my whole life, not just the parts that happened outside my front door. I said yes, but something made me hesitate. Something made me take that framed deed down from my closet and hide it in a box in the garage before he arrived. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself I was being unfair to this wonderful man who had brought so much joy back into my life. But I hid it anyway. Victor walked through my house and said all the right things. He loved the lemon tree. He loved the terracotta tiles in the kitchen. He loved the way the sunset came through the western windows. Then he asked the question that still echoes in my mind almost 20 years later. "Just be careful, okay?" he asked. Is this place a rental? Because if the landlord ever decides to sell, you could be in trouble. The housing market around here is heating up. I looked at him. This man I was falling in love with. And I made a decision in that moment that would save my life. Yes, I said. I rent from a retired couple in Phoenix. They've owned it for decades. I don't think they'll ever sell. He nodded, seemed satisfied, and never brought it up again. Why did I lie? I've asked myself that question 1,000 times. Maybe it was the way he asked, so casually, so specifically about ownership. Maybe it was a voice in my head that sounded like my mother, who always told me that a woman needs a secret, something that belongs only to her. Maybe it was Richard's ghost reminding me what happens when you trust someone completely with everything you have. Whatever it was, I listened to it. Victor moved in 8 months later. He said his mother's health was improving and she didn't need him in the guest house anymore. He said, why pay for 2 places when we spent every night together anyway? We're heading toward marriage anyway, right? Why wait? I agreed. I was in love. I wanted to believe this was my second chance at happiness. He moved in with his clothes, his books, his fancy espresso machine, and a framed photo of his mother that he placed on the mantel like a shrine. I didn't think much of it at the time. Sons love their mothers. That's a good thing. Then he asked about splitting expenses. I'm on a fixed income now, he said. Retirement doesn't stretch as far as I thought. How about I cover groceries and you cover utilities? We'll split everything else down the middle. That seemed fair. I agreed. The first month, he covered groceries. The second month, he was a little short. His pension check was delayed, he said. Could I cover it this once? I did. By the third month, a pattern emerged. There was always a reason. A deal fell through. His investment didn't mature when expected. His mother needed money for medications not covered by Medicare. I'm a little short this month became the soundtrack of our relationship. I started keeping a mental tally, then a written one. In the first year Victor lived with me, I covered over $8,000 in expenses he promised to repay. He never did. But I loved him. And love makes you stupid. Love makes you believe that next month will be different, that the promises will be kept, that the man you fell asleep next to every night is the man he says he is. We got married in October of 2008, a small ceremony at the courthouse. His mother Dolores was there, along with my sister Margaret and a few friends from work. Dolores wore a black dress, which I thought was odd for a wedding, but Victor said it was the nicest thing she owned. I didn't ask for a prenuptial agreement. That was my mistake, but not for the reason you might think. In Arizona, property you own before marriage remains your separate property as long as you don't commingle it with marital assets. My house was mine, my savings were mine. As long as I kept them separate, the law protected me. But I didn't tell Victor any of this. As far as he knew, I was a renter with a modest salary and a small savings account, and I let him keep believing it. Am I crazy? Or is his mother trying to take over my life? That question started forming in my mind about 6 months after the wedding. Dolores began visiting every day, not to see her son, to inspect. She would walk through my house, running her finger along surfaces, checking for dust. She would open my refrigerator and comment on what I was feeding her son. She would rearrange my furniture when I was at work and act surprised when I noticed. I'm just trying to help, she would say with that thin smile that never reached her eyes. You work so hard, Eleanor. Let me take some of the burden off your shoulders. The burden she wanted to take was everything. My kitchen, my living room, my husband. Victor always took her side. She's lonely since Dad died, he would say. She just wants to feel useful. Can't you be a little more understanding? I tried to be understanding. I tried so hard. But understanding has its limits. The breaking point came in March of 2010. I came home from work to find Dolores in my bedroom. Not just in my bedroom, in my closet, going through my things. What are you doing? I asked, my voice shaking with a rage I could barely contain. She didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. Looking for something I lent you months ago. A scarf. Blue silk. Have you seen it? She had never lent me any scarf. We both knew it. Get out of my closet, I said. Get out of my room. Get out of my house. She left, but not before shooting me a look that told me this wasn't over. That evening, Victor and I had the worst fight of our marriage. He accused me of being cruel to his mother. I accused him of letting her run our lives. He slept on the couch. I lay awake all night, wondering what she had been looking for. The next morning, I checked my hiding spot in the garage. The box was still there. The deed was still inside. But the box had been moved, just slightly, from where I always kept it. She had been looking for proof of what I owned, proof of what could be taken. I didn't confront Victor about it. Instead, I started paying closer attention. I started listening at doors. I started checking his phone when he left it charging in the kitchen. What I found destroyed what was left of my love for him. Text messages to his mother, going back months. She's definitely hiding something. The house has to be worth more than she lets on. When are you going to find out what she really has? We can't wait forever. Don't worry, Ma. Once I know what we're working with, we'll make our move. She trusts me completely. I sat in my kitchen with his phone in my hands, reading message after message, and felt something inside me turn to stone. This man I had married, this man I had shared my bed with for 4 years, had never loved me. I was a target, a mark, a vulnerable widow he thought he could exploit. But they didn't know about the house. They suspected, but they didn't know. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. I went to work. I came home. I made dinner. I smiled at my husband and kissed his cheek and told him I loved him. And I started planning. The first thing I did was consult a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. A friend of my sister's who specialized in family law. I drove 2 hours to Phoenix to meet with her, so there would be no chance of Victor or Dolores finding out. Let me make sure I understand, the lawyer said, reviewing the documents I brought. You owned this property before the marriage. The deed has only your name on it. You've never added him to the title. You've kept all your finances separate. Yes. And he doesn't know you own it? He thinks I rent. She looked at me with something like admiration. Mrs. Mitchell, you're in a very strong position. Arizona is a community property state, but that only applies to assets acquired during the marriage. Your house is your separate property. He has no claim to it whatsoever. What if he tries to sell it? She almost laughed. He can't sell property he doesn't own. Even if he forged your signature somehow, any sale would be invalid. The title company would catch it in seconds. I felt relief wash over me like a cool breeze on a hot Tucson afternoon. But I knew the danger wasn't over. They wanted something from me, and when they realized they couldn't get the house, they would try something else. I didn't have to wait long to find out what. In June of 2010, Victor came to me with a proposition. I've been thinking about our future, he said, taking my hands in his like he used to when we were dating. We're not getting any younger, Eleanor. We should be enjoying our retirement, traveling, seeing the world. But we can't do that on our current income. What are you suggesting? I think we should sell this house. My heart hammered in my chest, but I kept my face neutral. This house? But I'm just renting. Exactly. You're throwing money away on rent every month. If we sold your things, combined our savings, we could buy something together. A smaller place. Use the difference to travel. Victor, I can't sell something I don't own. He squeezed my hands tighter. I know, sweetheart. But I've been doing some research. I found out who really owns this property. The blood drained from my face. Don't be angry, he said quickly. I was just trying to help. I wanted to see if maybe we could negotiate with your landlord, buy the place from them. But when I pulled the property records at the county assessor's office, I found something interesting. He paused, waiting for me to react. I said nothing. There is no retired couple in Phoenix, Eleanor. According to the records, this house belongs to someone named Eleanor Frances Mitchell. Isn't that a strange coincidence? I couldn't speak. The room was spinning. My mother was right, he continued, his voice losing its warmth. She said you were hiding something. She said no woman your age lives this well on an administrative assistant's salary. And she was right. He let go of my hands and stood up, towering over me. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to add my name to the deed. Community property, joint ownership, whatever the lawyers call it. Then we're going to sell this place, split the proceeds, and go our separate ways. I'll file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Quick, clean, no drama. And if I refuse? His face twisted into something ugly. Then I'll make the next few years of your life hell. I'll claim you lied to me about your assets before our marriage, that you committed fraud. I'll drag this out in court until your legal fees eat up everything you have. My mother knows lawyers too, Eleanor. This doesn't have to be difficult, but it can be. I looked at this man I had once loved and saw him clearly for the first time. Not a devoted son, not a romantic partner, a con man, a predator who targeted lonely widows and bled them dry. But he had made one critical mistake. He had underestimated me. I need time to think, I said quietly. This is a lot to process. You have until Friday. 3 days. Then I want an answer. He walked out the door to go meet his mother, probably to celebrate their victory. I sat in my living room, surrounded by furniture I had chosen, in a house I had paid for with everything I had, and I made phone calls. The first call was to my lawyer in Phoenix. The second was to a locksmith. The third was to my sister Margaret. Come stay with me, Margaret begged. You're not safe there. I'm not leaving my house, I told her. I'm not leaving because of him. He's the one who's going to leave. On Friday morning, Victor woke up to find the locks changed, his belongings packed in boxes on the front porch, and a notice of eviction taped to the door. You can't do this, he screamed through the window. This is my home too. I'm your husband. This is my house, I said calmly. Your name is not on the deed. You are not on the lease because there is no lease. You have no legal right to be here. And according to my lawyer, I have every right to remove an unwanted guest from my property. I'll call the police. Please do. I have copies of your text messages with your mother. The ones about making your move. The ones about what you could take from me. I'm sure the police would be very interested to see them. His face went white. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, using his own words against him. You're going to take your boxes. You're going to go back to your mother's guest house. You're going to sign the divorce papers my lawyer is filing today, citing fraud and deception on your part. And you're going to do it quickly and quietly, or those text messages go to every person you know, every friend, every former colleague. Everyone will know exactly what kind of man Victor Castellanos really is. He stood there, impotent and furious, and I saw the moment he realized he had lost. You'll regret this, he hissed. I already regret the 4 years I wasted on you. Now get off my property before I call the police myself. He took his boxes. He signed the papers. The divorce was finalized in 3 months. I never saw Victor again after that day, but I kept tabs on him through mutual acquaintances. 2 years later, he married another widow in Scottsdale. She was 71 and had a beautiful house with a pool. Within a year, she had lost the house, her savings, and her relationship with her children, who tried to warn her about the charming man who seemed too good to be true. She didn't believe them. Just like I almost didn't believe my own instincts. Dolores died in 2015. I didn't go to the funeral. Some people thought that was cold of me, but I had my reasons. A woman who conspires to steal from another woman doesn't deserve my grief. Victor died last year. Heart attack, just like my first husband. Some people might call that karma. I just call it the natural order of things catching up. I'm 77 years old now. I still live in that little ranch house in Tucson. The lemon tree is taller than the roof. The terracotta tiles in the kitchen are cracked in places but still beautiful. The sunset still comes through the western windows every evening, painting everything gold. I never remarried. Some might find that sad, but I don't. I learned something important from my years with Victor. I learned that a woman's independence is not a consolation prize for failing to find love. It's a treasure that must be protected with everything you have. Because there are people in this world who will smile at you, hold your hand, tell you they love you, all while calculating what they can take. I don't have a husband, but I have my house. I don't have children, but I have my peace. I don't have wealth, but I have enough. And most importantly, I have my dignity, intact and unbroken, because on a day 24 years ago, I listened to a voice in my head that told me to hide that deed. If you're watching this and you're in a new relationship, especially later in life, I want you to hear me. Trust is earned, not given. Love is wonderful, but it doesn't pay the mortgage. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with keeping something for yourself, something that belongs only to you, something that no one can take no matter how much they smile or how sweet their words. My mother used to say that every woman needs a secret. She was right. My secret saved my life. If you found value in my story, please watch another one. And remember, protect what's yours, because no one else will do it for you.